All right, well, we're going to start this up and welcome everyone to Sail Newport's 15th Challenger Lecture Series event presented by Hinckley Yachts and Hinckley Yacht Services. This is our 13th virtual Challenger Series event, and we're delighted to have Nikki Barnes, Lara-Dallman-Weiss, and Sarah Douglas join us tonight. A special thanks to Emily Grigori and Nikki Rocchio and the team here at Sail Newport and you in the audience for making these Challenger Lecture Series so successful over the last 2 years. Oops, here we go. Already have a problem. So tonight again is the Olympic Rewind and preview the puffs and lulls of Olympic sailing in Tokyo and the road to 2024. But before we get into the presentation, I just wanted to talk a little bit about Sail Newport and where we are right now. And as we begin our 39th year, we do so with the optimism and excitement for what the future holds. Despite the many challenges of the past 2 years, we remain focused on our mission to provide affordable community access to sailing, offer world-class sailing instruction, and host exceptionally managed sailing regattas. Sail Newport's annual appeal provides essential, unrestricted funds for the organization, and we hope that you will support that annual appeal. Your support will help us maintain your beautiful sailing center. It creates new and exciting programs like our Pell School Science and Sailing program. It supports our amazing staff and of course funds the ability to keep our boats and equipment in top-notch condition. Please consider taking out your phone and focusing in on our QR code to go to our giving page at sailnewport.org. And of course, you're always encouraged to reach out to Eve Formisano, our Director of Development, in the office if you have any questions, or you can also visit sailnewport.org. Thank you all for continuing to help us chart the course for the future of public access sailing. We also want to recognize and acknowledge our Dr. Charlie Shoemaker, who is in the audience tonight, for being the inspiration for this evening's lecture series. Charlie's been a mentor to so many sailors in this community. We're proud to present the Challenger Lecture Series named after his beautiful ensign Challenger. And also we're honoring his service to our community as both a sailor and a doctor. So thank you, Charlie. Thanks for your inspiration. Thanks for such a great idea. And Hinckley Yachts, our sponsor, Hinckley Yachts, a huge thanks to them and their other company, Hinckley Yacht Services, from sales of new and used boats to world-class service facilities around the country. Hinckley Yachts and Hinckley Yacht Services has you covered. Learn more about Hinckley's product lines and yacht services offerings at hinkleyyachts.com. Thank you again to Hinckley and all of the folks at Hinckley for the help on this Challenger Lecture Series. We can't do it without sponsors. Our youth registration is open for our standard 2-week dinghy program, our keelboat program, and our Little Guppies program. Go to the Sail Newport website. Make sure you read all the information about how the application process works and the registration process. And you're able to go on right now for all of your dinghy sailing needs. The racing programs will be online in about a month or so, a little later in the winter. But our regatta schedule is online. There's tons of activity down here on the waterfront. There's turnabout frostbite sailing up at Newport Yacht Club, laser frostbite sailing on Sundays down here at Sail Newport. And of course, we have some thumb yachting, these little remote control boats like the one behind me, sailing every Saturday and Sunday, which is a blast. So lots happening in the harbor. Our upcoming lecture series on February 8th is with Charlie Enright and his team on 11th Hour Racing Team, talking about their new boat, the Transat Jacques Vabre that just got completed in November, December. And they'll also give a lot more information about their racing schedule, their training schedule, and we're looking forward to Charlie and his team, some other folks on their team. Also, in March of 2022, going along the same theme of ocean racing, we have Francesca Clappish and Jessie Fielding, who both competed in the Figaro in Europe and sailed all around France, sailing single-handed all summer. I cannot wait to hear their stories about sailing alone in those amazing boats against some of the best single-handed sailors in the world. So that'll be in March. The date is TBD. But we're here to talk to some Olympians. And I'm really excited to have you all. Sarah, this is your second time joining us on a Challenger lecture series, but thanks for being here. So it's my pleasure to introduce Sarah Douglas, Nikki Barnes, and Lara-Dallman-Weiss, 2021 Olympians. Sarah represented Canada in the laser or ILCA radial class. Nikki and Lara represented the United States in the 470 class. I just want to introduce you to our sailors a little bit more. Sarah Douglas was born in Burlington, Ontario, started sailing at the age of 7 on the island of Barbados, which I didn't think was connected to Canada at the time, but maybe there's a long bridge. But she sailed the Optimist and competed in North American and World Championships. And after outgrowing the Opti, Sarah returned to Canada and transitioned into the laser radial or ILCA class. Sarah quickly became one of the top youth sailors in Canada, representing the country at the inaugural Youth Olympic Games in Singapore. After a 2-year pause in competitive sailing, her dream to compete in the Olympics was awoken by Canadian medalist who inspired Sarah to get back into the game and pursue her goal of winning an Olympic medal. I can't wait to hear that story later in the presentation. Having completed a Bachelor of Commerce degree in Marketing Management at the University of Guelph in 2017, Sarah is now sailing full-time, winning the 2019 Pan Am Games gold medal and finishing a historic 6th place at the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games. Now, Sarah is hungrier than ever to step onto the podium in Paris in 2024. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Great. And I forgot to go through these slides while I was talking, as usual. Next up is Nikki Barnes. Born and raised on St. Thomas in the US Virgin Islands, she started sailing at the age of 6 with the intention, and she did it, of beating all the guys she sailed against. Nikki's currently attached to Sector Miami and active duty in the US Coast Guard in the search and rescue field. She was granted a support allowance billet, which allowed her to train full-time as sailing until the end of the 2020 Summer Olympic Games. So thank you to the US Coast Guard for letting that happen. Some notable accomplishments. Nikki was 3rd at the ISAF Youth Worlds in Croatia. She's a 3-time All-American sailor representing the US Coast Guard Academy and a collegiate women's national champion in 2016, and was also named the Quantum Sailor of the Year in 2016. Welcome, Nikki.
Thanks for having me.
The last thing on that one is, of course, she is a 2017 graduate of the US Coast Guard Academy and a commissioned officer in the United States Coast Guard. So we also have Lara-Dallman-Weiss grew up sailing on White Bear Lake, Minnesota. I assume you also either ice fished or skated on that lake at some point. And while always around the water and sailing in the summer, most of her development as an athlete came on the basketball court, on a track, doing cross country, and as a dancer. But she found her love for competitive sailing at Eckerd College. This is not Eckerd College. I don't think they sail in Optis. And from there, continued to race and work with an incredibly diverse range of teams until she and Nikki joined forces in the 470. Notable accomplishments: North American Far 40 champion, 1st place Key West Race Week in CNC 30s, 1st place in an Etchells in the Pacific Coast Championship, 3rd place in the Match Racing Worlds. And Lara is a 2011 graduate of Eckerd College, where she studied nutrition and was team captain. She earned both Crew and Skipper of the Year awards at Eckerd, and she had her best result, a 3rd place finish at the 2010 Women's Nationals. Lara raced on the professional circuit for 5 years, racing with the teams in Etchells and Melgus and Far 40s and super yachts. Currently prepping for a run at the 24 Olympics in the foiling NACRA 17. So thank you for all being here. I'm going to stop sharing here for a second, and we can go into the famed Hollywood Squares version. So welcome to all of you. I'm so proud to have Olympians as part of our continuing series talking about sailing of all types on our Challenger lecture series. And I'm going to open it up. We're going to do a little bit of Q&A here first. We're opening up to questions from the audience as well. But first of all, I'm going to start with that obvious question. Lara, Nikki, how did you meet? How did you become a team? And what brought you together in the 470 class?
So you want to hear about our love story?
Yes,
right?
that would be great.
Okay, I got it. Lara, you want to kick it off?
Sure. It feels like such a long time ago now.
Oh.
Nikki and I started sailing together in 2018. We met through a mutual friend, Mike Marshall. So he's a Newport guy. And he knew that Nikki was looking for a skipper or for a crew, and I was looking for a skipper. We were basically set on a blind date, and we had coffee together and decided to go out for a sail. And just that moment we both got in the boat together, we knew that we had to keep sailing together. And right after
the blind date was more like a business meeting. Lara came with contracts and I was just like, I just want to sail. But Lara's like, this is how you do it. Let's go. Sorry, I just wanted to add that point.
Yeah, no, that was good. And then we had a US sailing team clinic where it was basically Nikki trying to find her crew. And there were 13 different crews. And I was in a place where I was flying drones. And so I could have either done a lot of that in the performance analysis side or pursued a campaign with Nikki. And luckily enough, Nikki chose me out of all those crew.
So Nikki, I was fortunate enough to sail 470s a long time ago. Did you dunker in the water on the first tack or the second tack?
We had a difference of opinion, a communication problem here in Newport. Actually, we were doing a training, and I don't know why, but I was so mad at her because she wasn't listening to me. Maybe because I'm little, and I dunked her, and I don't think she'll ever let me live that down. Lara, you remember that?
Oh yeah.
We're sailing. Yeah. Okay.
We were like sailing through the mooring field right in front of New York Yacht Club, gonna show off, and then all of a sudden like got into our first fight, but it was good. We got it right out of the way.
I'm glad we could host your first fight at Sail Newport when you came into the beach. Sarah, you have a long history in youth sailing, and just tell us what your motivations as a youth sailor to become the best you could be. And did you have Olympics on your mind when you were sailing your opti or transitioning into the laser when you were in your early teens?
Yeah, I was really competitive in the opti. I think I sailed it for like 6 or 7 years. It's actually how I met Nikki when we were like 7 years old in the Virgin Islands. But to be honest, I never thought about the Olympics for myself. My brother went to 2 Olympics and I was like, oh, cool, big brother's in the Olympics, but never thought about it for me to go and compete myself. I just thought it was a cool thing. And actually, I was very, very competitive in the opti, and I kind of went from love to win to hate to lose. And that's where I kind of lost the love of racing and doing the Optimist. And as I switched into the laser radial, it got a little bit tougher. I wasn't winning regattas, and then it actually just led me to quitting completely. It was one regatta where I came second at the Youth Nationals of all things, which is an incredible accomplishment for most people to finish second. But for me, I was so obsessed with winning that just crushed my dreams. And I decided to take a 2-year break, which you kind of talked about in the bio. And from there, I decided to go coach the Optimist. And I was just kind of sailing for fun, doing regattas for fun. And I ended up going to a Canada Games, like Ontario team camp. And I got to listen to a bunch of Olympic athletes, Paralympic athletes, Para-Pan Am athletes. And one of them was a double gold medalist in the sport of trampoline of all sports. Talking about her Olympic.
This is the mentor I referred to?
Yeah, exactly. So Rosie McLennan, she had just won her first gold medal in London. And she was talking about her Olympic experience and the journey and what it was like to hear the national anthem. And I was just kind of sitting there being like, what am I doing? I want to do that. I want to win an Olympic medal. I want to be the best in the world. And so it wasn't actually until I was about 18, 19 that my Olympic dream began. And from there, I was like, how do I get fit enough? How do I get to the national team? What are my different steps to the next Olympics? I ended up being a little bit closer to 2016 than I thought I was going to be. But yeah, my Olympic dream didn't start until I was about 18, 19. I have a bit different of a path than other sailors.
What did the trampoline, Olympian, what was the message? What was the message? Was there, you got to love the sport again. You figure out how to love the sport again, because you were at a point where you were kind of done for a while.
Yeah, she just mentioned or talked a lot about the journey, and not necessarily the Olympic medal, but the lessons that you've learned, the friends she made, and of course the Olympic medal's the best. Like, that's what you dream of, and that's what she was working for. But she actually cherished the lead up the most, and the values she had learned, and that kind of just really inspired me to chase that and enjoy the journey. So yeah, she was always been an inspiration for me. And actually, in the spring of this year, I was having a really tough time and a lot of burnout. And she actually called me in that time. My trainer had shared that I was struggling, and she called me. And it was such a small world, because she didn't really know that she had inspired me to chase an Olympic medal or an Olympic dream. And there I was, like, April before Tokyo, and she's calling me to help re-inspire me to show, like, hey, why do you do this sport? Why do you love it? And kind of help me in the tough times so many years later. So yeah, I think the importance of mentors is really key for sailors.
That's great. Well, we'll get into that a little bit more later, I'm sure, in the Q&A. So you, Lara and Nikki, you guys found each other. You survived your first dates, and you survived, and you started training, and you have an eye towards 2020, right? You started after 2016. You had an eye for 2020. Things are going along smoothly. Sarah, you were on your way. You'd won the 2019 Pan Am Gold. Things are rolling along perfectly in preparation for your trials. And then the world turns upside down, inside out. There's a global pandemic. And I guess I want all of you, just tell us what that felt like as January turned into, February and then March, as your dreams are like evaporating. How did that feel? Let's start with Nikki.
Yeah, it was a bit weird. It felt a bit surreal, actually. We were in Palma, Spain, getting ready for our third trial. We were the third team going into the trial, and pressure's on. We're preparing. We're doing everything that we can to get ready. And I remember talking to our physical trainer, and he said he's heading back to the US because of this thing called COVID. And I was like, that's silly. What's he doing? And then the men's team, they started talking to us, and they're like, yeah, we're gonna head out of here. And I remember that Friday we headed out on the water in Palma, went for a sail, and there's just something in the air that felt weird. As soon as we came into the,
This is like 2 days before our Worlds was supposed to start at this point.
Yep. Yeah. On Monday.
And that was the last qualifying regatta, right?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And yeah, so I think our coach knew as we were on the water, but he wanted us to have a good session. So we were just, tuning it up, shredding the gnar, and we went to the entrance to head in, and he said, hey, regatta is canceled. And at first we thought, okay, we're going to go to the grocery store and get 2 weeks worth of food, and we're going to wait this out in Palma and then get back to training.
So you just thought, this is just a blip. This is just a blip.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah,
nothing
exactly.
In Palma, that's what everyone was saying. They're like, it's going to be a 2-week lockdown, and that's all it'll be.
Mm-hmm. And Sarah, where were you at this time?
I was days away from heading to Palma. So we had Canadians in Palma, and I remember we had a team call, and our high performance director was like, everyone get on the next plane home. Like, everyone needs to come back to Canada. I had my bags packed, ready to go to Spain. And then, yeah, the whole world just kind of flipped around for us.
Yeah, because they closed the flights. So that's, a lot of people couldn't leave. So that's interesting that you guys were mandated to head out as well. So.
We were on the last flight out of Madrid, and I just remember like barely making it to the airport, running through the airport, we were taking videos of everything closed down and like running through, just like, are we going to get stuck in Madrid? Like, what's going to happen? Just that unknown feeling. Like you
I
go
don't
from
think
like,
we even had masks on at that time.
no. And you go
Yeah.
from like high adrenaline of like, this is your world, your Olympic qualifier, to like complete priority shift of like, got to get home, safety. Yeah, it's wild.
Wow, what a challenge. I mean, that's a human challenge of getting home. But then you're sitting at home and you're wondering, and you know, Lara, I think you were quoted in a pre-Olympics article saying, in a crisis like this pandemic, there can be either danger or an opportunity to change. And our team took the latter to grow in many ways. You also indicated that the pause was an absolute advantage for you and Nikki. How did you take advantage of this opportunity, and what was it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was really hard right when we got home because we were in lockdown, and just social media was blowing up. Everyone was on social media. Everyone you train against was posting their at-home workouts, what they're doing. They're still in the grind. And so we were just on this like high adrenaline push. And I remember reaching out to and really leaning on my physical trainer. And he's like, listen, like we train in blocks. So right now that was just the end of a phase. So now we're going to reset. We go into the next phase, like take a break, rest. Like Nikki and I have been going full on for 2.5 years. So let's just take a pause. So we really like had a big reset. And then we just started again, like from our coach, Robbie, he's like, let's start at the foundation. You guys started your campaign so fast. So let's build the house. And that's what we did in Miami. We just slowly like wrote our own tuning guide and really got to like nitpick all the details of the 470 and become experts. And then we got invited to go to train in Spain and Santander from their national team. And that was the most incredible experience because it was men and women in the 470. We had a group of 20 of us. It was the biggest group, I think one of the only groups training. And you didn't have the pressure of a regatta. So we all got to know each other. We all just were in the same bubble, going out to dinner, sharing information, sharing what we learned on the water. And I think we were head in focused and learned so much and just had a blast doing it too.
And I'll pose the same to Sarah. I mean, I think you were quoted in that same Sail World article that I read that you believe this was the hardest part of the whole workup to the entire games, the disruption of the pandemic and the process. How did you get through it?
Yeah, I actually, when Palma got canceled, I wasn't sure how long this was going to last. You know, I thought it was going to be a 2-week process, and gyms were closing in Toronto, and I decided to flee the country and fly to Barbados to be with my family. I brought my training partner from St. Lucia, and because at that point the Olympics were still on, and we were in the last 4 months before the Olympics, so it was a sprint to the finish. And I ended up just kind of setting up shop in Barbados, like got 2 lasers to the marina that my parents live in. We picked up a friend's motorboat that we could use as a coach boat. My boyfriend was going to hop in and be our coach. We set up an at-home gym. We got all the equipment. Like we were in full-blown training mode, working out every day in the mornings, going for a sail in the afternoon, full-blown, got all set up. And then first, what we had with Canada is that we actually boycotted the Olympics first before we knew it was going to be postponed. So that was a whole emotional roller coaster with the boycott. I'm lying there on my phone, 10 p.m. at night, and we get an email from our chef de mission saying that Canada will not be sending an Olympic team to Tokyo 2020. And as she sends out that email, all of the media gets it at the same time. My phone completely blows up. And it's just an emotional roller coaster because there in my head, I'm thinking, well, we don't know what's going to happen with this pandemic. Are the Olympics going to happen? Is Canada just not going to send a team? Am I going to be just out of an Olympic Games with all of this preparation? You know, we're 4 months away. And so those couple days as Canada boycotted until the postponement was really tough for me. And I just kind of had to get off my phone and just kind of just like separate from the world, go and take some sun in, you know, have a Corona or a beer or whatever it is, just like have some snacks and just kind of relax, because that was a really challenging time. And then with the postponement, I also struggled with that because I was just simply exhausted, and I had put so much effort into it and had this idea that I was going to be competing or starting the Olympic Games July 23rd of 2020. So to readjust the entire plan took some time. And of course we had lockdown, so you could kind of control your day and okay, let's focus on what I can control. I can go do a workout at home, or I can do whatever I want because this is the time to take off. And so I ended up being in Barbados for 2 months because we also were stranded on the island. You know, we had a pretty strict lockdown on the island because I think there were only like 40 ventilators on the island. So we were very, very cautious, and you couldn't even leave your home at points. And so from there, I eventually came home to Canada, did my 2-week quarantine, and there were still challenges in getting back onto the water in Canada because of the rules. And for me, it was really important to just kind of remind myself why I love it, make sure I'm having fun on the water. And that summer, that was really important. We sailed in Kingston, Ontario, and had a blast just getting back onto the water, just reminding ourselves, you know, why we do it. Let's make sure that we now replan and restart for another year of training.
Great. So Nikki, now the Olympics has been canceled, and you have an opportunity to either train here, and as Lara said, you ended up going to Europe. Tell us about that process and how U.S. Sailing was able to, or U.S. Olympic team was able to manage that.
Yeah, so we weren't able, for a long time here in Miami, we weren't able to get onto the water just because that wasn't, you know, it wasn't the right thing to do in such a sensitive environment. So Lara held the team by doing all the organization, all the finances, everything. Like, she was the one holding it up. And I fortunately was able to go back to my job in the Coast Guard and knock out a lot of qualifications that I needed to work on. So she was holding up the team. I was doing the Coast Guard. And then, so actually I went to Croatia in August to see my now husband, because he wasn't able to enter the US for 6 months, but I went as a guinea pig to see if we could enter Europe. I ended up proposing to him, and then we got married. That's a different story. But I was flying back, and I was flying through London. And I remember I accidentally went outside of security, and I said, "Oh no, I'm so sorry, I'll quarantine." And they said it was fine. And so I ended up going to downtown in London and looking at Buckingham Palace. But that night we got on a team call, and Robbie, our coach, he said, "We need to just go for it." And so as a team, we decided to just make the push for Europe. At this time, there's still restrictions saying we weren't allowed to enter Europe. This is beginning of September. And so we, you know, with the help of other federations, our federation as well, we were able to enter by the skin of our teeth and just train as hard as we could. I think we were in Europe for Spain for 6 months and Portugal for 3 for that whole year, just to grind it out and get on the water as much as we could. And we were with the best teams. So it was incredible.
So Sarah, did you have the same opportunity to get to Europe?
I only did for about a week and a half, 2 weeks in October of 2020, because we had our European Championships and we decided to go there. But coming home from Canada, we had a 2-week quarantine. So we couldn't really travel back and forth, but we decided that Europeans was important enough to do the 2-week quarantine afterwards.
So where did you end up doing most of your training? In Kingston that summer? And then what about the winter?
And then I decided to head to Florida for the winter. So I think I came down at the end of October, and I stayed all the way to about April. I did all of my training here, and I didn't go home because of the 2-week quarantine.
So we're on to now a new process, because the games did eventually get rescheduled for 2021. it seems like things are on track. You know, there's vaccines on the horizon. Things are starting to look like, you know, we're turning a corner, which we eventually did, but then we aren't maybe now. But let's talk about the Canadian program first. How did they decide how to pick your athletes for the Canadian sailing team?
We had a 2-event selection process. So it actually first started in Australia, February of 2020. So before the pandemic, we had actually done our first selection event, was at the World Championships. So luckily I had a 31-point lead going into the next. I was supposed to go to Palma of 2020 before it got canceled. Then we reshifted to be Lauderdale OCR of January of 2021. But then because of COVID, they decided to cancel that. It then got pushed to Palma of 2021. And then that was also canceled. So then our Olympic trials just finished. We just did the one event. And then it was our Olympic team, which was a bit weird because, you know, you want to compete and finish it off. You want to finish the race and be like, yeah, you know, I'm sure Lara and Nikki had that celebration. But for me, it was more of an email and seeing a cancellation of an event. I was like, okay, I guess it's official now. Like, I'm going to the Olympics. That was it. And I was like, I guess I'll go buy some champagne now.
Well, Lara and Nikki, you had the exact opposite experience. Your U.S. trials came down to the wire. It came down to the last. Did it come down to the last race?
Yeah, the last official day of racing, not the medal race day. But I think I'm still processing it all.
Yeah, it's a good thing it wasn't stressful.
Yeah, exactly.
So we had sailed 2 of our 3 qualifying regattas before the pandemic, which is what we were sent home for right before the world shut down. And our 3rd event was supposed to be the 2020 Worlds, which were supposed to be in Palma. And, you know, as the world kind of kept moving along, that event kept getting pushed back and back. And so we kept thinking, all right, it's going to be this date, it's going to be this date, it's going to be this date. Each time you hear a new rumor, you get like kind of excited. Is it going to happen? And eventually the US sailing team named all other classes, all other athletes to the Olympic team, except for the women's 470, because they're like, there's 3 boats and they're so close. We just can't, you know, we've got to see what this year does to all 3 teams. So they said, you know, we're going to wait until, even if it's like you guys are racing and then you get on the plane to Tokyo. So we just had this whole buildup of like, what's going to happen. And even 2 weeks, I think it was even a week and a half before the Worlds were sailed, we still didn't know if it was going to be an event. And so like, talk about the mental stress and preparation. And that was, you know, we got life lessons there. But yeah, eventually, you want to say something, Nikki? Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, like for our trials, you know, we're the 3rd boat going into it. We had to beat the other boats by, I think, at least 2 positions in the standings in the results. So not just 2 points, which makes a big difference. And so going into that week, I think we decided in our mantra for that, that whole training leading up to the trial was, hey, we're going to sail our own race. And we saw moments in the regatta where, you know, we were looking around for the Brugmans or the Coles, and we're like, oh, what are they doing? And those are the races we sailed the worst. And the races where we just put our head down, looked for the shifts, got our boat speed up and running, those were the best. It was, I think, the most stressful week of my entire life. I woke up, I was throwing up every morning. I wasn't sleeping. I kept dreaming, changing my dreams from going to the starting line to walking in through Disney World, because that's my happy place. But it was, it was a great fight. And, you know, the 2 teams that we fought against, they're incredible. So I think we finished so well with that challenge and that excitement with other teams. So that was
Well,
great week.
I think I might have a visual representation of how both of you felt as you crossed the finish line in the last race. Bring us through this emotion right here. Look at that. That is just the most relief I've ever seen on anyone's face in my life.
It's
Oh.
funny because it's the exact opposite of how we usually are. Like I always finish races and I'm like emotionless. I'm like on to the next. And I was so happy here. We weren't sure. This was the last race before medal race day. Officially, we didn't know about the points until we hit the dock because it was so close. But I was so proud of that race. We sailed our own race. We sailed it so physically well, but so smart. And we were just like dancing together. And that was just all of the work we had put in together. The boat was also a part of our team. Like we just owned it. And that's the pride in my face. I remember Nikki just being like, can you drive? I can't even steer right now.
Yeah, well, so that race too, we finished in third, but it was a battle through the race course because they put up free pumping, I think around the reach mark. And you want to propel the boat forward through the free pumping rule. And so your heart rate is like 160 to 180. And I just remember like my body was just tingling because we'd just given it all. And there's nothing more to do. We had the medal race the next day, but at that point, it kind of, actually, I didn't need to know the results, but I knew, this is going to sound weird, but I knew in my soul that we qualified in that moment. And so, it's very emotional. It's just, you work, it's not about the result, but it's about achieving your highest potential. And so in that moment, I thought we did, which was incredible. And obviously that line is always moving. You're never perfect. You're always working forward. But that was,
If
very
I get
emotional.
another quote out of this webinar or this Challenger lecture series, that one should be heard by all sailors out there, all parents out there, anybody who's involved in youth or even professional athletics. It's making sure that you've given it your all to get the achievement at the highest level possible. And it starts here, doesn't it? It starts in your heart and then it translates to your brain. So congratulations on that one. So now you all have qualified or been selected as your representative for your country to go to an Olympic Games. That's a great feeling, but there's still all this weirdness out there, right, Sarah? I mean, the weirdness factor has never been higher. You've got people protesting in Japan on the streets saying that they didn't want the Olympics to happen in Japan. You've got all these media outlets, what was it like in Canada? What was Canada saying? And how did you guys keep it together? Because I don't think I could have.
You kind of had to just put your blinders on, to be honest, because you'd be walking around the yacht club or you come home from day of sailing and you go online or someone comes up to you and said, are the Olympics going to happen? What's happening with them? And so you just kind of had to put your blinders on and almost just kind of deflect or have like a script that you would say to people, because you just had to believe in your heart that they were going to go on, but you really had no idea, but you had to prepare as if they were going to happen.
Yep.
So that was a whole challenge of just making sure that you were prepared regardless of the results of Tokyo.
And you had mentioned earlier that you worked with the Canadian Olympic Committee with media to how you approach media and when media approach you. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think in the final preparations to Tokyo, there's always a lot of media surrounding it. People are wondering what your preparation is like, what you've been doing, how you've dealt with through the pandemic. And luckily, I got a number of different media opportunities in Toronto just before I went to Tokyo. And they always ask, how do you feel about the safety of the games? Like, do you think they should happen? Blah, blah, blah. And we had been prepared by the Olympic Committee and Sail Canada to address those questions. Kind of, okay, you know, I feel comfortable with the safety. We're doing everything that we can, and kind of deflecting. You know, I trust the Olympic committees, the organization of Tokyo, and just kind of figure out that question and the media behind it, and just deflecting it, because you couldn't really get too emotional about it or think about it yourself too much.
Nikki, did you guys have a big giant testing protocol that you had to do like every day, or how did that all work before you left?
Yeah, so for Team USA, it was quite simple. If you tested positive before going to the games, you weren't going. And I'm sure there were situations where, you know, you could talk it out or whatever, but for our side, there's no way that was possible. So we were working on preparing physically outside of the gym, mentally and everything, just avoiding people as much as we could and trying not to get sick. So I actually got COVID the December before our trials. So it's still fresh in my mind because it took about a month to get a negative PCR test. And so that was just something that we were always worried about. And even when we went there, we were in a huge bubble at the games. But you just had to be careful.
Well, during all this time, there's still uncertainty. And Sarah, I have a few slides here of you and your fan base that are just fantastic. Now, where is this? Where is the yacht club?
So this is my home club, Asperger's Bay Yacht Club in Toronto. And I had about 2 weeks, maybe no, more than that, like a month of training at home at the club before I went to Tokyo. And the head instructor at the junior club messaged me, be like, hey, we want to do a little send off one day before your training. I was like, okay, sure. I don't really know what that means. And then the entire junior club, the Commodore, a number of people, all these kids surprised me. You know, they're cheering. They made this epic card and they all signed it. And it was the cutest thing ever. And I still have it. And it was just one of those moments that, you know, with everything with COVID and you've kind of been isolated and not really with everyone, it was just a very heartwarming moment to see the kids cheering you on, to see how you can inspire the next generation, and to have that support going into Tokyo. It was a really, really special moment for me. And I got kind of emotional on the day, and I was just like, oh my God, I had no idea it was going to happen. So that was really special leading into Tokyo.
Yep. And I don't have pictures of Lara's or Nikki's family, but your fan bases could have gone to a normal Olympics, you know, go to Tokyo, have a good time. But family had to stay home, watch it on TV. I think they did a very good job, by the way, making sure all the sailing was broadcast. Some were better than others, but at least you could see it all the time. Lara, tell us about your family and how they were able to participate and stay involved.
Sure. My parents, who I think are on this call tonight, they did not suffer at all. I think they had a better experience. So Team USA sent 2 of our family members to Orlando, and they got tickets to Universal, and they put them up, and they just had viewing parties every night. And it sounded like the best time. And parents, instead of just going to the sailing venue and meeting other sailors, they would meet all different athletes, parents, and like former Olympians. So yeah, that sounded really cool. And then Team USA actually, so normally we would go to somewhere in the US to process, get all of our gear, get sized up, but they didn't have that. And so they sent all of our Olympic kits to Tokyo. They actually got there a week late. So we were walking around the boat park and the dining hall and everything in our like 1 or 2 outfits that we had brought, not branded or anything. Everyone was like, who is this team? But once all of that gear came, Team USA actually had reached out to friends and family to send us cards and pictures and all of this like posters. So it was a really special moment. We got to like try on our kit together and get all these notes from our friends and family. So it was really special.
Yeah, I think the parents actually had a more exhausting week than us. They're going to Universal Studios during the day and then watching the races at night. So it's tough. No, but
Yeah.
seriously, thanks, Mom and Dad, and my brother and my whole family. Thank you guys for supporting me. Just wanted to do a little plug for the family.
You
I
can
know
all do
my
that.
family.
Yep.
I know my family was jet lagged like that whole week, afterwards, because they're staying up in the middle of the night. The picture that was up before, where I think it was like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and they're having like their watch party with their Canada stuff, and they would stay up till 6 o'clock in the morning sometimes, just be like, oh my god. Like after my final day of the racing, I had a really good day and I ended up being in 4th overall, and they were all up till 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning, just reveling in it, be like, oh my god, like we're so close to a medal, blah blah blah. And they were just, the espresso martinis were going around, and they were just having a
Excellent.
great time.
Oh, that's fantastic.
It
So
was
you,
actually really hard if we had like a wind delay or no breeze, and things are going on, and
oh,
people are watching back at home, and you
oh
kind
yeah,
of just
that was
want to
bad.
text people and be like, go to bed, it's not happening today.
Yeah. Everyone
But
seemed to have their mole over in Tokyo to say, yeah, don't worry about it. It's not going to sail today. Ours was Tom Duggan, who was as you know, who was the principal race officer. And by the way, while we're on the topic of Tom, should we grade him? How did he do running the
yeah,
whole
oh, it was
Olympic?
rough.
A plus, A minus, B? What are you talking about here?
No,
I think he did great. I think he needed to smile a little bit more, but I guess if you're running an Olympic Games, it's a little stressful. So we'll
Yep.
give him that.
Okay, good.
they did a fantastic job. And I think also for Nikki and I, our first games, just having someone from the US that we knew was like, even though we weren't allowed to talk to him and he was so busy, like it was still really special to just know he was there.
That's great. That's great. So you're here. You're walking around the boat park. You still don't have your clothes yet, but you're here. Your boat made it. The 470 made it. Sarah, you're getting your boat for the first time because it's all supplied laser radials or Ilka radials, whatever we're calling them these days. And so tell us, Sarah, about showing up and, oh my God, I'm in the boat park and it is 1,000 degrees.
Yeah, it was, other than COVID, the extreme heat of Japan actually was the biggest concern. So we actually had ice vests and a number of different strategies to deal with it. So our ice vests were basically a life jacket that you like put ice packets into. I had a tent over my boat. I had a little personal blender that my coach would make like an ice slushy with electrolyte powder so that I could have it on my way in to cool down because it was extremely hot. The boat park was kind of like this concrete block with not a lot of covering. And that was a really big concern of just not having heat stroke. And I think it was, well, I guess I'm Celsius, but it was like probably around like the 40-degree mark. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, but extremely hot. Even the water temperature was very hot. You couldn't really cool down. You had to wear your lightest layers, try to wear white when possible. And then another aspect of Tokyo that we had was kind of like the container land. And every country probably had at least 1 or 2 containers. And we had various ranges of the types, like Canada, we don't have as much money. So ours, like we had an air conditioning container, but we didn't have like proper doors. While like say Team New Zealand had like full sliding doors. You go in the container and it looks like an apartment on the inside. It doesn't look anything like a container. I think the US one was a bit better. They had a door and like AC cranking, but that was a really important part of Tokyo, was just to escape the heat and try and cool down.
Yep. There's actually,
That's a great
I forgot
picture.
I had these pictures. This is one of the, I believe she was in track and field and just with a big ice block on her head. And this is actually, if you Google heat Tokyo sailing 2021, this is an Argentinian sailor trying to cool down between races and hanging on to his fin.
I would put a ice bag in my life jacket between races just to help cool down.
Wow. Laura, you guys, Lara and Nikki, you guys had the pumping rule where they just would send it. And it seemed like you guys always had had the green light for pumping the entire regatta. You guys must have been just
It was
annihilated
brutal.
after every
I
race.
mean, we had the full like pre-sailing cooling plan. And even with doing all of that, I can specifically remember one day just going downwind, pumping our hearts out, and not remembering where I was in the world. Like that's how like my brain all of a sudden disconnected, and I was like, am I in Spain? Am I in the US? Where am
That
I?
is called heat stroke.
That's really
Yeah.
bad. Yeah.
Lara would always have these 2 ice packs and put them on her cheeks right after racing. I thought it was nice. You know, it was balmy out there, beautiful water.
Nikki's
just like the
nuts.
Virgin
Don't
Islands.
listen to her.
Yeah, that is typical St. Thomas weather, right, Nikki?
Yeah, absolutely. I was
Mhm.
born for that.
So the racing, you know, the racing, it was kind of light, but there was a couple windy days, right? Sarah, give us a little bit of your experience. You ended up 6th overall, top Canadian women's result ever. Tell us a little bit about the racing.
We had a mix of conditions in Tokyo, you know, every single condition you practically can get. We got light wind, heavy wind, big waves. For the most part, I think I had a really good mindset and kept very level-headed and very focused on the racing. I had a whole plan with my coach that we had talked about before and just kind of executed while we were there. And of course, there's mistakes that you make in the racing. I know one race is definitely burned in my memory that I made a wrong decision, and maybe the regatta would have gone differently, but that's just part of sailboat racing. And then on the final day, like I said, I had a really good day. I posted a 4th and a 2nd and was sitting 4th overall going into the medal race, just 3 points out of a bronze medal. So things were very much a possibility, and I was very nervous. I then kind of had that roller coaster moment of emotions, and going into the medal race, I was just like, okay, let's focus, like have a plan. My coach and I talked everything through, and unfortunately the race didn't go how I wanted to, and I ended up dropping the 6th. And I remember crossing that finish line. It was kind of like what Nikki and Lara were talking about, just kind of giving it your all in that race till the very end. And then I remember sailing over to my coach and just hugging him and just bawling my eyes out. Like from that moment on, I just kept on crying for the rest of the day. You know, I come to the ramp and all of the Canadians swarmed me with their flags and were hugging me, and I was just bawling my eyes out. And I was like, I'm sorry, I hate crying. I'm not this person. And I was like, just I need a second. Like the emotions just completely took over. But I was really, really proud, but also very frustrated and upset that I had come so close to a medal and didn't quite do it. But in the end, very proud of my performance that week.
Congratulations. Fantastic job.
Yeah, nice
Lara,
job, Sarah.
Nikki.
That's incredible.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
I was just saying that's incredible for Sarah. You know, we've known each other since Opti, so it's really cool to see, like, you know, one of your I would maybe colleague, peers,
Contemporary.
Yeah, and it's cool to see, especially women sailors. Like we have to keep building and boosting each other up, and so it's nice. It's just awesome. Nice job.
Thanks,
And Lara and Nikki, whoever wants to go here, your experience. I mean, you had some nuking days. I watched one of those races, just full on big waves. Tell us about those crazy days.
Well, so we had one day where it was 15 knots, and the only reason it seemed like a crazy day was because it was 5 knots for the past week and a half leading up to that.
Oh.
So it really wasn't bad, although there were boats flipping over. It was just quite a big change from what it was.
Oh, okay.
I think on TV it made it look windier than it was.
And it was short chop too, so the sea state was like pretty bumpy, and it made it look crazy.
Yep. So I have a couple other pictures of you guys. I think this was the practice regatta or the practice races, because you didn't have your logos on your sails yet.
Right.
Right.
This is the shot that everyone loves, because Mount Fuji, like she didn't come out to show herself very often. And when she did, everyone was just like, wow, that is incredible. Yeah.
I think we have a tow out to the race course here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun. I
I
don't
think I
know.
have a couple more here. You guys are posted up on the high side of this run. Did this work out for you in the end?
I think I don't know. There's some days it just depended. I think it was a mindset regatta. And so some
Mindset.
days we did really well because we always ended up getting measured at the end of the day. The measurers ended up loving us, maybe because
They pulled us 3 times for measurement.
yeah.
Ooh,
Yeah.
So that was
wow.
awesome. Well, like a compliment kind of, but yeah, it was, I mean, it was challenging. It wasn't like, it didn't feel like a normal regatta at all. You have so many things going on in your mind. And then also in Japan, it was, you had that chop and then some weird current, and it would kind of eddy around. And so you really had to focus on the different changes and keeping your head on a swivel throughout the race course. But going into our last day, I don't think that we could have done anything differently. Sometimes I think that regattas end a certain way to teach you a lesson for the future. Not saying that I'm not proud of our result or anything. It definitely, that last day didn't show our potential. We had 2 poor races. One, we were over early, and one, we just, we worked so hard in the race, but it's kind of like those races where you're running and somebody's pulling the carpet the other way and you're not moving forward. And but I think it was a great lesson to show that it's not necessarily again about those results and how you finish.
Right.
We put so much into this. We went from 31st in the world to 7th in the world, and we we worked so hard for that moment. It was just a sad ending day, but
you just had
yeah.
another quote of the presentation, a mindset regatta, and a lot of folks have to consider that. There's only one winner, and everyone else is second or worse. And there's something pretty special about what you all had to go through to get there, and then power through some really crazy conditions in terms of the heat and everything else that was around you in COVID. So a mindset regatta is the understatement of the century, really, because you guys had so much to deal with as you led into it. So if I could kind of go into some post pictures that look, you guys, obviously Team USA, I think your clothing had shown up at this point, but
Yes.
after sailing, Sarah was nice enough to send me some pictures. She got to go down to the village at one point. So, this is my favorite. What is going on here?
My first haircut in about a year, I decided to do at the Olympic Village. It's all like, it was free. So I thought, well, might as well. I had the day off, and they did not know what to do with my hair at all. I asked for a haircut, and I started off with one person. And after 2 hours, it was 4 people around my hair trying to straighten it, trying to cut it. And it was really funny because they were like, you have so much hair, like we can't deal with this. And that was the last haircut I've gotten.
And here's a picture of you and some of your team. And was this in the village as well?
Yes, we weren't allowed to actually attend the opening ceremony. So this is our opening ceremony clothes, our kit for it. So we decided to have our own little watch party at the hotel and get all dressed up and watch it through the TV.
And I'm going to flick back to your picture here, Lara and Nikki, about with the opening ceremony. That's you, right? Opening ceremony or closing?
This is
This was
opening.
opening.
Yeah.
We're so lucky we got the option to go. And so there were 7 out of the 13 of us, Team USA sailors that decided to go. We had kind of our Japanese team mom bring us, and it was actually like wild. They had to call, I don't know, who is it? Like a US diplomat to like bring us there and keep track of us. And it just showed you the scale of like, you know, the high security at the games. We had two special Secret Service officers guarding our boat in the boat park. But yeah, the opening ceremony was so special, and it's something that I don't, just being around like staging before you go out, even though there was nobody in the crowd, we were with 250 other Team USA athletes for an hour, just walking behind stage, and
So neat.
The energy and the power and everyone just like chanting USA, USA, like that is, it was so cool to be next to other athletes and say, hey, what do you do? What do you do? And then watch them on TV the next day winning medals. And yeah, we're still in contact with some of the other athletes.
Okay, well, I have
So-
some questions from the audience. We're going to do kind of rapid fire, so kind of short answers to these. But the first one is not going to be an easy short answer. From Travis Greenberg, 12-year-old OptiSailor, what is the one piece of advice, and this is going to go to Sarah. What is the one piece of advice that you give an OptiSailor that dreams of being in the Olympics?
Go for it. Ask lots of questions.
Nikki?
In Opties, it's where you build your foundation as a sailor. Never stop visualizing yourself on the podium after sailing your heart out. And always remember to smile, because even on the worst and hardest days on the water, you're on the water. You're on a beautiful body of water in an incredible place. So enjoy it.
Lara?
Make sure you love it, because that's your biggest driving force when the days get hard, and participate in other sports, because the foundations and the lessons you get from other sports are incredible.
Bingo. Be a multi-sport athlete. I agree with that one.
Yeah.
With a shortened schedule to 2024, where's the focus? Fitness, training, competition, and what's the winning mix to be on the podium? And just as a preview, I'm just going to remind our audience that Nikki is considering a run at the co-ed 470, right? And Lara is working towards a NACRA 17, the foiling catamaran. And Sarah is back on the track for another ILCA radial run. So with the shortened schedule of 2024, where's your focus? Fitness, training, competition, and the winning mix. So we'll start with Nikki this time.
So right now, I am trying out a crew. I think I have a pretty good idea on who I want to sail with. Mystery crew, won't mention his name tonight, but it's going to be exciting. So I am focusing on my fitness and my mental fortitude right now, just because I am back in search and rescue right now for the Coast Guard, loving it, but unable to get on the water as much as I want right now.
Beautiful. We'll skip down to Sarah.
For me, I took 3 months off from working out post Tokyo. So I'm definitely trying to get back into shape, working out lots. And then it's important for me to start practicing getting on the podium more often and kind of having that like mental pressure and aspect of it. So I'd really like to do that leading into Paris, just to be stepping onto the podium, getting that pressure feeling, so that it's not a new feeling in Paris.
Beautiful. Lara, you're going into a completely different boat.
Yeah, absolutely.
Transition.
So always fitness, number one for me. There's so changing my body to the different boat demands. And then Nikki and I spent so much time 470 focused, and we really had to, but missing some of my friends in the pro sailing world. So doing a couple of regattas just on the J70, on Melgus 15, I'm going to drive. So different.
Great. And are you going to be back on the super yacht circuit in the Perini Navies?
Oh my gosh. I would love to go back to St. Bart's.
It's like sailing apartment buildings.
It's so much fun. There's just, you think about totally different things.
Exactly. All right. So we've covered what's next. We've covered kind of your road to the Olympics, and hopefully that is has paved a way to another potential run at another slot to represent your countries. I know you're proud of your whole Olympic committee, the Canadian Olympic sailing team. U.S. sailing's gone through some big transitions with the U.S. Olympic sailing team. Larry, you and I talked a little bit about that earlier today. Any big changes that you've seen? And what's the
Absolutely,
impact?
yeah. So we're now led by Paul Kayard, and he's been doing a fantastic job. He showed up in Tokyo and just did a bunch of like listening and observing, and he's been taking in a lot of feedback to the sailors. And you know, the whole team, we've seen changes already, just a much bigger budget. And yeah, we just finished a 7-day US sailing team camp where we had, COVID made us all do all the meetings on Zoom, but we had an incredible sailing 7 days straight. And so I think that really, they took our feedback to heart and saying, we need more like team bonding, not just within our class and within our squads, but with the whole team. So
Beautiful.
Yeah, we've got some good balls rolling.
Great. Well, I want to thank the three of you so much for giving us your stories and also your perspective. And I think Sarah's story of taking that 2 years off, not wanting to lose, that's how a lot of people lose their love for whatever sport they're having. And taking those 2 years and coaching and understanding a little bit more about yourself is important. And Lara, your comment that multi-sport athletes are doing other sports is so critical. The professionalism of youth sports is becoming rampant. And I believe that being in a team sport makes you a better team sailor in a double-handed boat or a crewed boat with 3 people. And certainly the perspective that I have aligns very well with what you guys said. So congratulations on everything you've done. Thank you all who are online here for attending. We hope to have the 3 of you back at some point to give us an update on what's going on. I'm not sure how, I think, is this your dad who like snuck onto the Zoom over here in the corner? Do you see, Nikki, you haven't.
Yeah, I gave them all my link. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
It's my dad.
I'm just
and my
very
brother's
impressed that he snuck on
girlfriend.
there. That's pretty good. That's
Yeah,
pretty
we're
good.
cloning. We're working on cloning for the next games, just to keep the body ready to go.
Well, thank you, everyone. If you have a last word, take it, or we'll just wrap it up. Anybody have a last word?
Oh,
Yeah,
I do.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think the biggest thing Nikki and I learned, and one of our mentors always told us, like, hey, are you guys supporting each other? And I think that's the biggest thing, like, especially because we can't sail together anymore, just the love and support for each other. So no matter how many people you sail with, even if you're sailing a single-handed boat, just like love yourself and love who you're sailing with. That support is huge. So that's my closing.
All right, Sarah, you got to have a closing.
I would just kind of go off of that a bit, is just surround yourself with good people. I think I really did that in the lead up to Tokyo, and kind of on now is just be really appreciative of the support that we get. And I am so much for just this call people here and just the community that we have within our sport. And so I just can't thank everyone enough, and thank you for having me tonight.
Great. Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for all of you attending. And thanks to Emily and Nikki, who have been working really hard to set up all of these Challenger lecture series. Thank you to Hinckley again for your ongoing support. And thank you for continuing to support our wonderful nonprofit as we strive to continue to make sailing accessible for everyone here in Southeastern New England. So thank you very much from all of us in Sail Newport, from a very dark and about to be very cold Brenton Cove. No training out there right now, but we'll see you all next time.